Welcome to How to Sell More. Today, we're talking how to keep your sales and marketing strong while facing an economic downturn or cutbacks. Oh, painful, isn't it? But we're talking with B2B marketing expert Pam Didner. Now, Pam's journey in the corporate world spans an impressive 20 years. She's worked in finance and accounting. She's worked in manufacturing and operations. She's worked in marketing. She's also the author of 3 books, Effective Sales Enablement, Global Content Marketing, and The Modern AI Marketer. Now, sales and marketing is hard enough when you have time, when you have resources, when you have budget. But when we're facing economic downturns, when we're facing cutbacks, it's even harder. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more with Pam. I am Mark Drager. Let's get into it. So Pam, you have, I don't want to age you. I always say that. You have decades of experience in B2B marketing.
Doesn't matter. You can age me. It's totally okay.
I can age you?
I don't really care.
Okay. You have decades of experience, but your experience has touched operations. It's touched marketing. It's touched sales teams. It's touched senior leadership. And you and I were talking a little bit before we hit record about something we're in a really strange time right now.
That's true.
A strange time because in some ways, there's this economic climate where people are businesses, leaders, are very hesitant to invest in new things.
Yeah.
On top of that, there are massive restructurings and layoffs. So we're in this weird economic climate where everyone wants more sales, more leads, more revenue, more profits. We need to cut expenses, but we're also not going to make investments because we're not quite sure what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
And this leaves leaders, this leaves business owners, this leaves teams with fewer resources, with higher expectations.
That is true. Everywhere.
And you were telling me that you've kind of whipped up, with your decades of experience, a way that we can think about how we can turn this around in 90 days and how in the matter of just a few months, we can really look at our company, we can look at our teams, we can look at our structures, and we can really, reboot how we go about sales.
Yes. So, Mark, you are totally right. You hit the core on everything. The key things right now is now you have what you have. You have to deal with the cards that you're being played with. And if you have a less budget, you actually also have less headcount. Well, that's the way it is, right? So instead of looking at what you have, you need to look at what can you do more with the existing budget or the scale back budget that you have. So my recommendation is always look inward. Like if you have been with the company for a long period of time, you kind of know because you are seasoned, you are senior, right? You've been in the job for actually a while. You kind of know what works, what doesn't work. And what you need to do is you have to look at in terms of what is working, what is not working. And then you have to be very focused and you have to prioritize, right? So get together with your management, understand what their expectations are, and get together with your sales team, understand what their needs are. And also understand within the existing team, which has been reduced, what they can do, they cannot do. Gather all the information that you need, okay? Then you have to prioritize based on the existing budget and existing resources that you have, and then determine what you can do to support them. That's the key, right? So do that first, get things going. It's called KTBR. If you are going through restructuring, everybody will oh my God, you kind of shocked. Like everybody have left. The people that actually left in the team, you don't want to rock the boat. I completely understand that. I've been there. The key is try to still get yourself in the zone, understand what you can do, and then take it from there.
2 thoughts as you're describing this, because I've been in these types of meetings many, many times. First of all, shouldn't these types of check-ins and objective views between leadership, between sales, between marketing, between advertising, what have you, shouldn't this be going on anyway, even if there's not a downsizing?
Yes, they should. But a lot of companies, they may not completely align, if you will. That's why they are still talking about sales and marketing alignment. And also, you have to understand a lot of people, they will let go. They take a lot of tribal knowledge with them and a lot of support. Say you've been supporting sales for a long period of time, but that person left. Then all of a sudden, a lot of tasks were stalled. They didn't get done. So even if you have a great sales and marketing alignment and a great collaboration with the people that were supposed to be in place to do a job, they may not be there anymore. So things got stalled. Then you have to think about it for all those tasks that's currently stalling, what should you do about it? Are you going to prioritize them, or are you going to outsource them, or are you going to basically say deprioritize and say this is not our focus at this time?
And I have to imagine that asking your existing team to try and figure out in this new state how we are going to do more with less, while they've just watched all of their colleagues and their friends and their departments get decimated.
It's tough.
How do we help with the morale issue in this situation? Is that even relevant, or is this like, let's just be objective and strategic and not worry about emotion? That's a great question. So I've been through in that situation many times because I work in the tech segments. In the tech segments, you have the boom, you have a bust. That's just the way it is. Okay, in the past 20 years, we have seen them all, right? And if you were the lucky ones, you didn't get let go. Yeah. If you're the lucky ones to go now, let's fix all of this.
Let's fix all of this, yes. And a lot of time you need to go through that emotion. It's kind of like grieving process. So it also depends on the company. Some company they acknowledge, the HR actually acknowledge the problem. They actually will help the employees kind of go through that. But there are some companies, they are pretty tough. They was like, you know what, this is the way it is. Our company is not doing that well. The quarterly is not doing that well. We have to take this hard decision. So let's just move on. And it depends on the company, depending on the culture. But as a person, all right, obviously the emotion is raw and you feel it. And I always suggest when the people report to me, like when we went through a massive layoff, when I laid people off, sometimes you deal with that. We take care of our team and have the team that actually have a conversation and be frank and be transparent about what is going on and what can we do. So I think it's up to the leader to actually take that lead and take that emotion, a challenge, if you will, into consideration and actually build up the morale again to move the things forward. But some leaders not necessarily, make that as a focus. So it depends on the company, unfortunately.
And so as you described, being able to call everyone together, look at our resources, look at our strategy or the goals, the objectives for what we're looking to do, look at our sales team, our marketing team, look at the headcount, at the knowledge we have.
Yeah.
I always bump up because I'm a visionary entrepreneur and I have conversations with my COO all the time.
Yeah.
And he always goes, Mark, we should work with what our team is capable of. And I always say, I think we should. No, I'm not going to accept that. I'm not going to just work with what my team is capable of. I have higher expectations than that.
You want to stretch everybody. You want everybody to get out of their comfort zones. I get that.
And so there seems to always be this gap between expectations, especially if we're reporting to leaders or we have we have clients or we have people in our lives who just don't understand how complex some of this is, how much time it takes, how much money it takes.
Yeah.
And so as we're doing this, as you're working with people through this reassessment of exactly what is possible, how much are we right-sizing this to the team, or how much should we be? And how do we manage those differences between, okay, we have expectations that might be much, much higher than what our current resources are actually capable of delivering?
That is a great question. In fact, I'm running that challenge actually with a client of mine right now. They are looking for Plan 2024. And with the Plan 2024, the marketing team is asking for incremental budget. Obviously, the COO and the CEO was like, no, we don't know in terms of economic situation in the 2024. I'm not sure I can give you this budget. But at the same time, we want you to increase the number of the leads you're going to get for next year. Right?
Of course.
So less budget, more leads. I mean, we run into that.
And ideally higher quality leads as well.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Tell me about it. Exactly. Yeah. The quality cannot suffer. No way. Right. And a lot of that question, from my perspective, is dollar and cents. If the marketing team actually are pretty good in terms of tracking cost per lead in the past several years, they know how much money it costs to bring a high quality lead. It's a cost per. At the end of the day, it's a money and cents discussion, period. Right. So there's always a challenge. And the marketing will say, well, look at this data. We are able to drive the cost per lead down actually steadily in the past 3 years. But we feel that we've hit the plateau and this is how much it's probably going to cost. Anything lower than that, the quality is going to suffer. Even with that kind of discussion, the management is probably not listening. They're still going to say, okay, that's cost too much per lead. I want you to bring that down more. At the same time, bring number of the leads up. So there's always an impasse. When you started talking about this, always an impasse between the doers and also, I hate saying the management is the talkers, but you know what I'm talking about, right? So at the end of the day, it's a compromise, right? So fine. The marketing team is asking for $1.7 million, and which is a 30% increase from last year. And with that, they are willing to hit more than 50% of the leads. So 30% increase, 50% of leads. But the management say, well, no, that's way too much of the increase in terms of budget, but I still want to hit the 50%. At the end of the day, it's a negotiation. It's what kind of compromise you're going to hit. That's really the bottom line. And that the marketing team is comfortable taking the goal. And what we end up doing is we taking a stretch goal, right? So we still maintain existing budget. We take it on additional in terms of the lead, but we make that a stretch goal. So there's two goals that we are going after. One is existing goal, slightly higher than what I'm going to do last year. Then it's a stretch goal.
When there's a situation like this, I think it's quite common for most leaders to look at top of funnel activities.
That's true.
And tend to ignore sales enablement, tend to ignore, working old leads, dead leads, referrals, word of mouth. A lot of businesses let a lot of business slide because they're so focused on the new lead or the new sale, and they're completely ignoring account management, customer service, win backs, whatever it might be.
Win back. Yes, I love that term.
When you're sitting down with these leaders, or when those of us are negotiating through these strategies, should we be focused on other areas of sales as well? I feel like we should.
We should. So again, Mark, I 100% agree. There's so many areas you can focus on. And, if you look at the purchase funnel, and which is you indicated, marketing tend to focus on like bring the new leads into the funnel. And when you bring in the new leads into the funnel, but not every single one of them will convert when you move down the purchase funnel. Right. And you brought a very good point. There's a lot of accounts, which is they have several touch points where we talk to them several times, but somehow the lead went dead or when lost tractions. And should we kind of look into those accounts? We call them dormant account and then wake them up. And you brought a very good point in terms of win back. Right? The win-back campaign is usually looking at existing accounts that have not engaged with us or they've been dormant for a little while and see we can wake them up a little bit, right? So with that being said, there are other campaigns you can take a look. What I usually suggest my clients do is we need to combine both of them. There are certain campaigns you run is focused on the broader bring the new leads, but you don't do that campaigns every single quarter. So you have to mix and match. For Q1 and Q2, man, let's go out big. Let's bring some new leads. But maybe at the end of Q2 or beginning of Q3, let's look at a store account. Let's do a win-back campaign. So it's a combination of both. Is that helpful? So you take into account in terms of the broader awareness than the new leads you need to bring in. But at the same time, when you bring enough leads in and the conversion rate is not high, then you need to start looking existing account and see if there's anything that you can do to bend the odd to your favor. That's how I see it.
I love it. And with your experience in marketing and in B2B, I want to throw this line at you and get your gut reaction to it.
Oh, hey, hit me hard. All right, I can take this.
No, this isn't a hard one, but this is something that I've been rolling around in my head for quite some time. I was at a conference a few years ago, and I was listening to someone who had built a really large education business, got a television show.
Ooh, nice.
And yeah, did a few seasons of TV, and he was talking about the success of doing these road tours where he would visit all of these towns.
Road shows. It's road shows, yeah.
So he did a road show. He has this business that's blowing up with traditional digital marketing, traditional digital marketing. And then he had this TV show. And what was the most interesting thing from his entire takeaway is he said, my business really changed when I started focusing on non-scalable tactics. Non-scalable tactics. Him going on this road show is not scalable. It's a lot of his time. Him being on the TV show is not scalable. Him having him leading education sessions where he's like on one-on-one calls with people, not scalable. And so obviously, if you're working in an organization with 3,000 or 10,000 or 65,000 staff, you want some pretty scalable activities. But if you're working in a smaller, medium-sized business, I often think people get distracted trying to create version 1 of something to be infinitely scalable, and they ignore all the non-scalable activities in front of them. How does that hit you with the experience you've had in B2B?
I would like to kind of address that in terms of a workflow and automation, right? So events in the B2B sides, events is not very scalable, right? How many events? You cannot do infinite events, right? In 365 days a year, right? There's only so many events you can go to, right? But if you send out email, let's assume you don't get penalized by Google, you can send unlimited email out. Again, that's assume you don't get penalized.
Yeah, it's assuming you have a warm list and you've cleaned it and all that other stuff.
Do that. So marketing channel, there's always, you need to think through what marketing channel you are using is effective. And that is different from, say, accounts to account and the companies to company. I work with the client. Email marketing works the best for them. And apparently the people they reach out, they are very niche. And those scientists, they read every single email they get. Email still works for them. Not kidding. You think I'm kidding? I'm not. Right. And but I also work for a client that the webinar is super, super fantastic in terms of getting leads for them. Email marketing, they got poor conversion rates whatsoever.
Okay, so are those live webinars or did they automate the system?
No, it's the great questions. They automate the process. They do monthly webinar. So they actually have automated process in place to
but real time webinars, not pre-recorded.
It's a recorded. It's a recorded webinar. The problem with the real time or live webinar is there's too many factors that things will go wrong. In a way, you are putting a live show. Putting any kind of live show, the Wi-Fi may go down, my mic probably will not work, or the lighting is just not working.
For the listeners, Pam is literally grabbing everything off her desk.
I thought this is like a video recording, and
it is too.
I have this like a ring light in front of me to make me look gorgeous. Just want everybody to know.
I would say something complimentary, but my wife will get mad, so I won't.
Oh man, yeah. So build a process that you can automate, and hopefully that will build the scalability. But scale is not limitless. At some point, there's a diminishing rate of return. Like if you do you cannot do daily webinar, right? That's a diminishing rate of return. But if you actually find it optimal, you do it every month and you still get the number of attendees, the number of leads that you need, great. So when you are looking for scalability, you also have to tie it with what is the optimal frequency that you have to go with. That doesn't mean you have to scale all the way and you have to scale boom up to the sky. It's what is that optimal point that you get the most out of your.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think anyone who's tried to scale a Facebook campaign or digital campaign or oversaturated an offer or an audience,
That's right. Yeah.
or allowed creative to stay in market maybe just a little
Little
bit too long,
longer.
and it starts to fatigue. I remember having conversations with leaders where they're like, "What's this ad fatigue you're talking about?" It's like, well, you don't only show the same thing to the same people so many times.
Yeah.
And so, gosh, these are all amazing points. So as you've kind of been alluding to, you do have this 90-day revenue reboot. We don't typically do like pitches or anything like that, but I am interested in knowing, who's this for, what is this about, and how does it help us?
Yeah, so I actually created a program. It's really based on my experience working with many B2B companies in the past 10, 15 years. And this specific program is called 90-Day Revenue Reboot. It's really in kind of like a sprint of a 3 months time frame. And I know a lot of marketing organization underwent a massive layoff. And when you kind of went through that, a lot of things got stopped, or they are not doing, or things that usually that you push down on a regular basis to get leads and it's being stalled. And the 90-day reboot is actually working with a marketing organization that's currently undergoing a massive changes, and see if we can work together and be very focused, create a plan to actually rejuvenate and revive your marketing effort.
And if someone's listening to this and goes, "Oh, geez, that's me," what company sizes are you typically working with, or team structures? Or
that's a very good question. In general, it's usually about mid-sized company and sometimes startup as well, because they cut so deep. And now they were like, "Oh my God, I cut it very, very deep. I need to do something about it." But they cannot hire a lot of people back right away. So they're kind of trying to rebuild the team to the point that they're cutting too deep. And I work with that too. And so I would say the startup, the mid-sized company, sometimes I work with the enterprises that just look into their marketing plan and then see what else can we do to actually support that. Like I said, a lot of time, and I'm in the trenches. Although I'm like I'm a consultant, but I'm a doer, and in the trenches and work with the team and get things done.
What would be the top 2 or 3 things that you kind of just see time and time again, and you're like, another one of those, as Ray Dalio would say?
I would say the couple of things I have seen that's very consistent is a lack of a clear definition of MQL. Which is marketing qualified leads. There's always a contention between sales and marketing, that the sales say this is not high quality lead, and the marketing say I work very hard to get the lead. And that to me, that contention is really the definition of the MQL. Can you make it so clear and crisp, and there's no dispute between the sales and marketing? That's number one. Number two, I've seen is a lot of time sales needs content. The best way for the salespeople to actually talk to any kind of prospect or existing account is they share content. Hey, this is a white paper we did, or hey, this is the next generation of a technology, blah, 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 blah. So you kind of use the content as the conversation opener to engage or re-engage with your prospect or existing customers. The marketing people need to understand the content that's needed on sales side is a little bit different than the marketing-centric content. There's a sales-centric content, there's a marketing-centric content. They are slightly different. You cannot just create a list of a marketing content and throw it off the wall to the sales side and say use it. And you need to somehow categorize it in a way that salespeople can understand.
That's amazing. I was reading, what was I? I was deep diving on music history. I'm not a musician, but for some reason I spent a lot of time.
Classic rock and roll, or like what?
Yeah. All of it. Like, the Beatles and the Beach Boys and all the 60s. Fantastic. But I was reading about this recording technology that came out in the early 90s that allowed independent people to record multi-track onto SVHS tapes.
Ooh,
and
cool.
Alanis Morissette's album Jagged Little Pill was basically the only album to ever be recorded on this. But I found the original marketing materials for these ADAT recorders. And as I was reading it, I was like, because this is written like 1993, I was like, wow, it is so benefit heavy and it's so feature heavy. But as I was reading it, I was like, I was getting sucked in to these technical
terms. You're like,
but not like, no, it wasn't turning me off. If anything, I was like, damn, I need to get one of these ADAT recorders from 30 years ago. And I was marveling at, like, I was like, I don't think we write copy like this anymore. I don't think I
You're
and
totally right.
as you were describing the sales enablement tools, I was thinking this is what, back in 1993, 94, everything was sold through distributors. Everything was sold through salespeople.
Yeah.
They made stuff to be able to sell the products, and we need more of that again.
That's right. I hear you. I think nowadays, because of social media and also all of us, our attention span has been diminished dramatically. And in the past, you will look at the template and you will read it. You will take your time to read it, and you'll say, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. Maybe I will be interested in reading a little bit more." Now we don't do that. We just don't do that. We don't grab a template and kind of read it. We look at like, oh, TikTok, 10 seconds. Oh, no, this is not good enough. And let me look at another video. So our attention span has reduced so dramatically to the point that we dumb everything down. You have to dumb it down.
Do you have to, though?
I don't know that.
Can we start a smart people revolution? Can we change the world and bring back like actual information and details and teach people stuff?
I don't know. I cannot tell you. I can. The reason is the way I see, for example, if you need to learn how to be a B2B marketer, and you need to know how to think. You need to how to think strategically. You need to how to think critically. The thinking process itself can be taught, but you need time to think. And when I tell people, when I do the workshop, I always tell my attendees, come think with me. I say, put your phone down, put everything down. I'm going to make this workshop super fun. But you need to stay with me the whole time. You need to stay with me, right? And I did not dumb it down. I make the complex concept simple. I simplify it to explain it, but I don't dump it down my teaching materials. But you have to make it fun to the point, or make it catch people's attention to the point that they can stay with you the whole time. And that's very hard nowadays to do, right? So to answer your question, do we have to do that to dumb it down? Well, it depends. But for anybody who is out there, you want to learn a certain skill set, you have to put your time. That cannot be dumbed down. And
I'm actually really encouraged by this. I'm encouraged by this because for those of us, I think like you or like myself or anyone listening right now, if you're taking the time to dig into these things and everyone else is being spoon-fed and want everything easy and do my thinking for me, I think the gap between us ambitious marketers and salespeople and leaders will continue to grow. Yeah. It'll continue to grow.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm on the right side of history on that one.
I agree with you to some extent until the AI comes along.
Oh, that's for the next time I bring you on. We'll talk about, Pam, next time I have you on, we will talk about AI. But you've been so amazing. Thank you for sharing all of this, just this wealth of information, which is great. I do have one last question for you, and I end every podcast this way. Right. What is your number one tip or strategy to help us sell more?
Oh, great question. I think the most important thing, I only have one. Understand your customers deeply. You cannot sell unless you understand your customers, their wants, their needs, their aspiration, their desire. Understand them deeply.
Okay, to wrap up this talk, let's get into the 3-point roundup. Number one, we've got to define what a marketing qualified lead is. If you are not clear from a marketing point of view or a sales point of view, what is considered a qualified lead, there will always be tension. There will always be arguments between your departments. And frankly, one side will be patting themselves on the back for hitting all those amazing numbers and quotas. And the other side will be saying, like, I can't convert these people. I can't do this work. So we have to, within our organizations, define what a marketing qualified lead is so we're all on the same page. Number two, and I think this is a really, really fascinating and important point that Pam made. We have to consider content different in marketing versus sales. From a marketing point of view, content marketing, content tools, or what have you, it's all about being able to make the connection, keep engagement, generate the lead. From a sales point of view, it's actually about keeping the conversation going, keeping people continuously engaged, and closing the lead. Sales enablement content is very, very different than lead generation or marketing content. And I know this was a really small part of the overall conversation, but I might do a solo episode on that. I think it's so critical. And number 3, when we are facing downturns, limited resources, or cutbacks, we have to understand that there will be limitations to what we can do. We all need to get on the same page with our very clear goals, our resources that we have, our capabilities, the areas that we can kind of plug in or fill if we're lacking something with outside vendors or whomever it might be. But we can only do what we can do. And we need to be really clear about that. And we need to be really pragmatic and practical about it, because to have inflated expectations will only lead your stakeholders, your senior leaders, or even yourself feeling, they may be delusional. They may expect way more than what's possible. But at the end of the day, we're just setting everyone up for failure and disappointment if we're not practical and pragmatic right out of the gate. Now, I want to thank Pam Didner for joining us. You can learn more about her by checking her out over on LinkedIn. You can find her YouTube channel, Pam Didner, as well. You can go over to her website and get copies of her books, Effective Sales Enablement, The Modern AI Marketer, and Global Content Marketing. And while you're busy checking Pam out, while you're over there on LinkedIn, following her, connecting with her, dropping her DM, you can also give me a follow as well. That's where I hang out most of the time. I would love to hear from you. And one last thing, if you've made it this far into the show, you probably should subscribe. And here's why. Every week, I share practical strategies and tips just like what Pam shared with us today to supercharge your business growth and to boost sales. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Mark Drager. I will catch you in the next episode.